We'll have Amanda Chawla, who's co-founder of Sensaroo.
Thank you. Excellent presentation as we're transitioning. A couple things that I'll bring up my notes here. So my son is on the spectrum, and I can definitely share as a mother from personal experience. Sorry, this is here, perfect. From a personal experience perspective, one of the things I noticed that's really relevant to the talk that we just heard is when my son has the exercise, he has a spinning chair, and we intentionally bring it out about 45 minutes before bedtime. When that happens, he's much more regulated in his speech, in his sleep. So I believe that you're absolutely onto something, and that it does help the individual. So with that, my talk is really at the foundational level around their lens, their world, and understanding intervention. And I'd like to start off here, and I'd like to start the conversation with the story about Such. This is a typical Sunday evening at my house where the laundry is done, the chores are done. I'm sitting here in the living room, out in the window, and just looking out while my son is sitting there at the coffee table and playing. And Such is 5 years old. He's in front of me. He's arranging his gazillion cars. You can see them here on the coffee table. And he's doing his usual thing. He's lining up his Hot Wheels, his trucks, and his fire engines in a very specific order. It's an intentional pattern that he understands. And he takes each car out of the bins with his tiny little hands, putting them at a very specific angle and forming a pattern. The colors here don't match, but he knows the pattern. And what's interesting is he's so focused, really focused, if you know what I mean, until he isn't. And so this Sunday that I'm talking about, he looks directly up at me, not around me, but at me. And if you know my son, Such is autistic. He's non-speaking. He cannot sit still for the life of him, and he never makes eye contact. And it is in that rare moment that he had just done exactly that. He looked right into my eyes. Without words, he's reaching for something much deeper. It hit me like a rock. He's in his world, and I wasn't present. I wasn't engaging. I was thinking about my Monday to-do list, my Monday schedule. And every parent that has a child with autism knows that feeling. Some days it clicks and some days it doesn't. We have the reports, you have the recommendations, you have the diagnosis, but you're still left asking the questions. What does my child actually need? Why does my child respond in the way that they do? How do I best support my child? And that little but powerful voice that's deep inside of you as a parent of, am I doing enough? And the reality is we are experimenting. I am experimenting with my child. So this is Such here. Such is a child that needs to be understood, like millions of children around the world. And that's really what Sensaroo is about. I think we all know the research. The need has never been greater. I don't need to explain the gaps. That's wide. We all know the stats, but there's two things I want to call out. One is this concept from when a family knows there's something going on with their child to the point when they actually understand, months and time goes by, and no one has told them how their child experiences the world. Today, this is a stat from 2025. It's an $8.5 billion global market in autism. And in the next 7 years, that projection is intended to hit 15.3 billion. There's growth happening. Back in January, attended the JPM Healthcare Morgan Conference, which is a conference that brings together 8,000 healthcare executives all around the country. And one of the primary messages of this year's conference was really around the new frontier. And it is believed that the next decade in healthcare will be about brain health. And brain health is the major conversation. The conversation is changing from outcomes to trajectory to how do we make things accessible? How do we make things affordable? How do we really understand patients where they're at? That's the discussion happening at a national level. So I don't know what just happened. Did I do something? Did I hit end? I think I just ended the presentation, so we'll come back to it. But I will keep going and have someone help me bring it back up. So the gaps that we have in the industry are well known. On one hand, today, we are diagnosing earlier than ever before. We have reports that are more comprehensive. We have professionals, therapists, individuals who are deeply skilled and deeply committed to the work that they do. But here's what I notice as a mom. As a mom sitting across from the best clinicians in the country, every piece of the system from the diagnosis and prescribed therapies is centered around what's happening to my son, not around how is my son experiencing the world. Nobody's handed me a framework or report or a tool that speaks of such as lens. How does he communicate when he's regulated versus when he's not? What does he need to feel safe and how he learns? These answers aren't in any report. And so we believe what's really missing is the bridge in between. And that's what I want to talk about today. And that's where life actually happens. So the two primary kind of products and solutions we want to bring forward to the market is first this concept of the child development indicator that gives families a 360 comprehensive view of their own child's lens and their own child's experience. The second is this concept of the My Voice. My Voice, especially for children that are non-speaking or minimally speaking, provides a connection that no communication system has before, where it's their voice, it's their face in their world, telling their story. So the center of what we're doing is really centered around the neurodivergent child and their experience of the world. And so before I go into a little bit of what we built, I want to center us on what we believe. I believe that understanding is the precursor to support. It's the support, it's where everything has to start. We start by identifying how a child actually experiences the world, not their diagnosis, not their deficits. And I'm going to come back to that because that piece is huge. But it's about how they sense, communicate, connect, and regulate at the moments of their daily life. It's a complete picture that we need. And what we deliver comes next, which is the personalized strategies. And the key here is evolving, because a child at 3 is not the same child at 3.5, or even the same child in the same situation. The science behind Sensaroo is living, it's not fixed. And the bottom of the slide says, we're not clinical, we're not a therapy, our core kind of function is a bridge of understanding. So that's kind of the mindset that I would ask everyone to kind of think about. So now I want to talk and introduce the CDI. And before I introduce the CDI, we've got a room here of professionals, virtually and here in person. And when we say introvert, when we say extrovert, we say somebody is the sensing type, or that you lead feelings over thinking. Everyone knows what that means, right? Over 80 years ago, a mother and a daughter came together and asked a question that the entire psychology field had not made accessible to ordinary people. And they asked, what if we could give everyone a simple, non-judgmental framework of understanding how you're wired? Not labeling them, just trying to fundamentally understand. So Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel were educated women who'd struggled for years to be taken seriously, partially at the time because of their gender, but partially because they lacked that formal psychology credentials. Yet they were at home building a framework that was grounded on Carl Jung's work in psychological types. Isabel first labeled the indicators in 1943. Sitting here in 2026, today, 88% of Fortune 500 companies use Myers-Briggs, and it's used across 115 countries. They succeeded because they were asking the question, not what's wrong, but how is a person wired? At Sensaroo, we asked a similar question, But that question is about neurodivergent children. Not what is wrong with this child, but how does this child experience the world? Through our multidisciplinary team, who I'll introduce in a little bit, we have developed the Child Development Indicator on the left or right-hand side that you see here on the screen. It's built on insights. It's designed through logic, but grounded in developmental science, sensory integration theory, communication science, behavioral science, and child brain development. It's designed through this multidisciplinary team because it's about understanding the whole self and how the child experiences the world. And we all know that research and science are important. Let me give you another perspective. Marcus Buckingham has spent 2 decades with Gallup studying what actually drives human behaviors and human performance. And his conclusion is, back through research across millions of people, is pretty straightforward. It's the fact that building on what someone does well produces better results than focusing on what does not. Gallup found that people who use their strengths every day are 3 times more likely to report having excellent quality of life. In addition, they're 6 times more likely to be engaged. That research was about employees, and you might be going, okay, Amanda, how is that relevant? I'm a leader of people and organizations. That's been my profession. That's been my world. And I believe this principle is much more human, that this principle is about human behaviors. It's not specific to adults, and it's not specific to the workplace. It's specific to individuals. And in our system built around neurodivergent children, we're doing the opposite. Services and supports are focused around the gaps and the deficits of what a child can't do. And what the CDI does is it intentionally flips that on its head. Myers-Briggs asks the questions about how people process information and interact in the world, right? So the CDI is asking, how does a child communicate? How do they process sensory input? How do they learn? How do they connect socially? How do they regulate? What does their world feel like? Myers-Briggs translates into, the blended combinations. But what CDI is doing is it's translating a child's experience and senses across different domains and development profiles, which we'll go into. No one child is one profile. It's often a blend. And the output of the CDS is not a diagnosis. It's not clinical. It's a portrait. It's a living one that grows with the child. So with that, let me get into this a little bit further. So what you're looking here at on the left-hand side is a CDI report. There's 2 versions. There's a professional version, which is 7 pages, multiple pages long. And then there's a 1-page version for the parents or the caregiver that's very simple, easy to understand, back to back. And I want to take you a little bit further into the inside of how this tool is architected. The CDI is not asking the questions that we fill out on surveys around, can your child do this? Yes or no. It's not asking whether you hit certain developmental milestones. It's assessing different and distinct types of signals. There's 3 major signals that we look at. There's the concept of the direct signal, which are what are clear and observable patterns that show up consistently, regardless of the context of the child, that tells us fundamentally how a child is wired. The second is contextual signals, which are conditional patterns in terms of what behaviors show up in what environments under certain conditions. They reveal how flexible or sensitive a child may be in that situation to the world around them. And the third is this concept of amplifiers. Amplifiers are not scored independently. They're a modifier weight of everything else that's measured here. They tell us how intense and how frequent or how consistent the pattern is. 2 children who have the same direct signals can look completely different because of the amplifiers they have. There's 34 very basic questions that we ask that generate over 200 different data points on a weighted algorithm. And what we're looking at is things like, what's the child's ability to communicate? What's their communication intention? What's their sensory processing? What's their motor development? What are their social engagements? How do they learn? How are they best regulated? And I want to give a very specific example to give you a flavor of what's last. So a child can have a high ability to communicate, but a low intent to initiate that communication. That child can be misread constantly as disinterested or avoidant. And another child can have a strong desire to connect, but a very limited ability to do so, to express it. That child can be misread as disruptive or frustrated without cause. They don't need the same support. And what the CDI gets at is really differentiating those, because we don't want to contemplate those different parameters. And what you're seeing here are some of the domains and some of the inputs intended to provide that 360 assessment. CDI is not a label. It's really a map of understanding of how your child is going through the world. So now I want to introduce this concept of why we use animals, characters, to explain the lens of the child. This is a very deliberate choice we made. We all understand intuitively that while animals cannot speak the human language, we all know that, right? No one questions that they have needs. No one questions preferences or instincts or a way of moving around the world that is entirely on their own. An owl doesn't communicate in the same way an otter does. Neither is broken, neither is wrong. They're just wired differently. A non-speaking child is no different. They have language. They have a sensory world. They have a way of learning and connecting that's entirely on their own. And every single behavior that gets flagged often gets flagged as a problem when it's associated with communication. It's the child telling you something about their experience in the world. So the 7 characters that we have hopefully are warm and fuzzy and accessible, but the logic behind them is it's strength-based. What CDI offers is it offers parents a way to communicate with teachers, babysitters, therapists, grandparents, friends, the community. This is my child. This is the way that they view the world, and this is how best to support them in the environment in an easy to understand way. That's what CDI is doing. Let me talk a little bit about strengths. A 2023 peer-reviewed study published in neurodevelopmental disorders found that when autistic children's strengths in areas like attention to detail, pattern recognition, and focused interest were used as a foundation of support, that oftentimes the results and the outcomes were that much better. What we're trying to say here is there's something to be had when we focus on strengths. And that's what CDI does, is it focuses on the strength, and that's what is pulled out in the learning profiles. Now I'm going to pivot a little bit. And what I want to talk about is, sorry, let me get here. What I want to talk about is taking a little bit of a quick detour. I'm going to ask everyone to take out their phones. Yes, this is the rare time you get to take out your phones. And I want you to go to your photos. And my phone is somewhere over here. But I bet you if I was to go to my phone and look at my photos, I'd probably see a lot of pictures of myself. And that is, we take selfies, right? Who over here likes to take selfies? Anyone? Gotta be some of you guys. Okay, some folks, thank you for admitting it. I like to take selfies. And oftentimes when we're looking at our pictures, we like to pick the best one. And we send it to the people that we love and we care about. There's actually psychology behind why we do this. And it has nothing to do with vanity. It's a concept called self-affinity. The draw we have towards our own face, towards our own image, is one of the most fundamental ways of establishing identity and connection to the world. Hold on to that thought, and because I'm going to come back to it. Now I want you to think about every visual communication board, every PEX board that you've seen out there, every daily schedule that you have used or seen. I'll say from my perspective firsthand, there's a lot of generic images of strangers. Sometimes you'll get a picture of my kid, an actual picture, but but oftentimes it's a stranger brushing their teeth. It's a stock photo of somebody going on the school bus. It's a stranger sitting down eating breakfast. It's not in their home. It's not in their favorite shirts or their favorite clothes or their kitchen or their lives. And we are giving these photos to children who already have to work harder than some of us. They already have to work hard. And we make it that much harder for them to connect. And we're asking them to identify with a complete stranger and communicate with us. And so what we've done at Sensaroo is trying to flip that. And so what we've established is really these concepts of taking a child's picture, and this is such, and cartoonizing it. Putting such in situations, because he's an early communicator, and being able to see himself clearly. And what we've developed is this concept of the My Voice folder and My Voice communication. We're not trying to replace the PEC systems or the AAC devices, but what I'm trying to do is for those children that are very young, that are getting introduced to communication, making communication resonate. And we know that visual learning is important for children with autism. That is what My Voice focuses on. So who are we and who do we serve? The honest answer is we're trying to serve the patient. We're trying to serve the individual that has autism. Again, it's about their world and their lens. But the circle that you see around them is the support system. And so how do we get the support system to serve the individual? And you heard me talk a lot about the families and caregivers. What I didn't talk about is the ABA companies. We all know the turnover and the challenges with ABA and the training and or their lack of. And so we believe that the CDI tool, if implemented with the ABA companies, with the BTs, can help in terms of understanding the child. We believe that the CDI tool can help the physical therapist, the speech therapist, understand the child through a 360 lens. We believe that respite companies that come in and provide babysitting types of services can benefit by having a child profile before somebody comes into your home to work with your child. We believe even regional centers and social workers and case managers can benefit through a 360 lens. We believe schools can benefit and educators. A teacher that's getting a new classroom of students, understanding the children that they're getting through the child's lens, not through our lens. And so that's who we're trying to ultimately serve in our market. So our team is multidisciplinary in nature. These are some of the folks, and it's very intentional. It's intentionally designed this way because what we don't want to do is we don't want to come at a singular view. And if we're really going to do that 360 lens, we've got to have a team that reflects that and is able to bring the different aspects from research, science, and therapy directly to the child and directly home. And that's the approach that we're using. So the opportunity and ask, because we are early in our CDI development, we have completed the CDI on a number of children and gotten really, really good feedback. We want to scale this. We want to make this even more refined. And so we are asking for partners and collaborators to work with us. Try out the CDI at no cost, partner with us, give us feedback, because we believe that this can revolutionize the way we support children that are on the spectrum, the way we support children that are neurodiverse. And so we're not trying to compete with any innovation, but we believe that this is a foundational piece that will help innovation accelerate all that much faster. And so with that, I want to say thank you. I started the story about Such and his placement of his cars. They aren't random. He has a plan. He has it with intention. And what we are trying to do is to better understand him through his lens and through his voice. So with that, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions? Okay. Yes.
Why not use photographs? Why did you choose to use cartoon-ish kind of
Yeah, for the My Voice, a variety of different things. One of the things we know is communicating feelings is very, very difficult. And getting those pictures in those feelings is not always possible. For example, I'd love for Such to learn how to brush his teeth on his own. I can't get him to do that, so how do I show him doing that? And by taking his picture, cartoonizing it, and putting it in a picture where he sees himself doing it, allows for that. And I'll tell you, the first time we shared the My Voice card, is Such loves to travel. We travel a lot, and we had a big plane, and we had Such standing in front of the plane. And I'm not kidding you, that was probably the biggest smile I've seen out of my son. And he started pointing right to it, like, I want to go travel. That's me, and that's the plane. Like, there was an affiliation. He saw himself doing something in a way that he hadn't been done before. And so that's the difference. Of course, we can all take pictures, but the difference is, how do you get your child to see themselves in a situation that they yet haven't been able to perform? And that's what the My Voice cards allow for. Yes.
I'm just trying to understand. So this is like a set of cards, or is that like an app?
Yeah, so we haven't yet converted it into an electronic app. Right now, it's a very basic human touch system in which the cards can be printed and put on a board and used. The next evolution would be to, how do we make it low touch, or using technology and having it. It's primarily intended for children that are early development, that are not yet to the point where they can use letter boards. This would be a step into that eventually. That's the thinking around that.
She's such an amazing tool. My daughter, when we lived in Singapore, we actually signed up with behavioral therapy, psychiatry, psychologist, whatever name.
Yeah.
So behavioral therapists actually use pictures, like they are drawing and talking about, the scenarios. Like, how would you react to this? Because, they're also trying to regulate emotions, and that helped her to put herself in the scenario and regulate it better. So actually, it's such a great tool.
Yeah, and that's something, again, very simple that we're using with technology as kind of our core, but we want to, again, the form and the basis of Sensaroo is we are a human-based business. And our job is to serve those that are on the neurodivergent spectrum, and really thinking about things through their lens, because I believe that's where we're going to get the greatest innovation. That's where we're going to get the greatest impact. And you just mentioned, behavioral therapy, but I mean, I'll say, look, as a parent, you're talking to 20 different people, but who is the one person that's got that 360 view and bridging it together? And that's where the CDI comes in, and really not saying, okay, well, this is a part of speech, or this is a part of occupational therapy, or this is a part of his or her psychiatric needs. It's, how do we understand that whole self? So we are providing that best support. That's really what we're aiming to address.
Yeah, they do like take pictures too. Like, I have millions of pictures.
Yeah.
She had a phone for 5 minutes, and I'm like, what just happened? My whole data is gone.
Yeah, I mean, because we have a self-affinity, right? There's something to be said, and that is actually our first kind of introduction to language in the world. And so we made it that much harder by not incorporating that piece from the very beginning. That's my belief. There was another question.
Great presentation. I was quite a little bit late, but I know you're going for children, especially younger children.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole spectrum of kids of different hearts and processes and their own growing, right?
Yeah.
How do you define from 100 kids, which one is the right audience for you, and who is there to help them to say, hey, this is the right kid that needs this kind of help? So there's such a vast spectrum, right? Like sunlight.
Yeah.
So you're going after very specific, narrow, very focused. And it's important that people who have to bring those kids to you understand what you're bringing to them, so they have a good comprehension as to who's the target audience for you.
Yeah. So I think that's a really excellent question. And perhaps maybe what I didn't do is do a great job clarifying the CDI. We've actually tested it on individuals that are not autistic, that only have ADHD, or only have a learning disability, or something else, or it's a combination of, because to your point, it's a whole range. Because it's doing that 360 view, it's about learning, and it's about engaging and experiencing the world. We have found the CDI to be viable for those that are low functioning, high functioning, and even those that are not on the spectrum, but have other neurodevelopmental disorders and needs. And so we believe that it is that whole case. Right now, the CDI is primarily age to under 13, 14, but it also depends upon the developmental age. We are working on an adult version and an adolescent version because there's a need there from a 360 standpoint if you use that same logic to apply. So that will be kind of one of the next things coming forward. But what we are trying to do is first really get CDI locked in for children, and then our plan is for adolescents and adults as well.
So you say children, what age group are you focusing?
2 through 13 as a 2 through 13.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
that's a pretty large age group, right? But if you think about brain development, you think about child development, there's a lot of commonalities. Where you land may be different. And again, it's about experiences. So when you think about sensory avoiding, sensory seeking, your motor development, that may not be different between age 4 versus an age 7. Now, what you do at that age will be different, and that's where the solutions are age appropriate, but the domains in the assessment are much more broader, and they bring those two parameters together. Yeah. Great question. Yes.
I don't think you should limit to kids only, because adults with autism also can relate to something like this.
Yeah.
And do you use this for social stories?
We have not yet used it for social
I think
stories.
it's a great tool
Yeah.
for social stories.
Yeah, we have not yet branched out to social stories, but we'd love to kind of engage in that conversation, because you're absolutely right. You can take the mind voice folders and the concepts and put a social story in there very, very easily. Your comment about adults is a really good one. In fact, we have been talking to an individual who has adult day programs and so forth. And there is some minor adjustments that we need to make on the assessment to make sure that questions are appropriate for an adult age, an adult audience. But to your point, it's no different for adults, right? We just haven't gotten to that point because we want to get CDI solidified and proven to be viable. And then we are in parallel starting to think about what is the adult experience in the adult world. So really, really good call out. Okay, I think I'm way over my time. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.